generate some response from the people listening. So if you get any questions, please put them into the chat, and we will then try and incorporate that into questions as time allows. On the topic of time, Katie Gordon will have to leave us at 1:30 as she has another booking with the CBI Hustings. But we will try and get in as many questions and opinions from everybody as we can. The format today is fairly simple. I will start the introduction and tell you a wee bit about the Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce and the purpose of today's hustings. Then each candidate will have a 2-minute slot for general presentation to introduce themselves and their party policies that are presenting to the electorate at this election. And then we will just move straight into the questions. As I say, we already have pre-prepared questions, and I will ask the person who submitted the question to read that out. I will then select at random one of the candidates to be the lead answer on that. And then we'll then ask the other candidates rather, to contribute their comments on that. And we will go around all the candidates in order so that everybody gets a chance to be the lead answerer for the question. On the topic of that, we will try and keep timing to a fairly strict 2 minutes for the lead answer, and then follow-up questions so that we can get as many questions in as possible. And I will, at some point, as chairman, may have to guillotine answers. The final point about this is we have the facility to mute and unmute everybody. It can be complicated in hustings. So I just ask everybody to mute themselves and unmute when required or asked. If anybody, I've already asked the candidates, if any of the candidates have a point to raise, can they raise their hand? If anybody wishes to make a point in response to the answers from the candidates, can they first of all put it into the chat? And again, we might try and bring that in as part of widening the debate. So I hope that makes everything quite clear, and we shall try this experiment with the electorate in Zoom to go forward. So the first thing is for me to say a wee bit about the Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce as your host today. The Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce is by its nature a members organisation, and we do several things. We organise networking events for our members, but we also represent their members at both local and national government level. Successes of the Dunbartonshire Chamber throughout the pandemic have been involved in running a bi-weekly Networking with Purpose event. We have also contributed to the local campaigns in Bearsden, Bishopbriggs, Clydebank and Dumbarton, focusing on trying to bring people into local town centres to spend during the pandemic. We've also had a very successful Building Bridges programme with schools in West Dunbartonshire, trying to introduce school children into the world of work. Okay. The Chamber has a good history of representing its members in roundtable discussions with prominent individuals, both political and otherwise economic interest. In the last 6 months, we have had roundtable discussions either directly or by Zoom with Jackie Bailey in her role as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, with Kate Forbes as the Scottish Minister for Finance, with Kwasi Kwarteng, the UK Business Minister, and with Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England. So I think you can see that through membership of the Chamber, you get direct links to influential people at all levels. And tomorrow, actually, there'll be a discussion with Tim Davie, the Governor of the BBC. So that is a wee bit about what the Dunbartonshire Chamber does generally. Interestingly, for the first time in my association with the Chamber, Scottish Chambers of Commerce have brought out a manifesto to present to all the parties at this election under the title of Rally for Growth. And there are these have various asks to the government of whichever party is elected on May the 6th. And it focuses a wee bit on the fact that there is a concern coming from our members that there's a disconnect between government actions and the private sector. And that it's to try and re-establish connections between government at all levels and the private sector. The focus of the Rally for Growth is asking for a Business Growth Act within the first 100 days and is setting up a joint economic partnership to steer government policy with input from the private sector. The Scottish Chambers of Commerce represent over 12,000 businesses and over 50% of Scotland's private sector workforce. I have to say that the possibility of disconnect is possibly not intentional, but from my own personal experience as president of the Chamber of Commerce, it is noticeable. As Chamber of Commerce representatives, we sit on various committees, both locally, such as the Developing the Young Workforce, the Working for Growth group at Western Bartonshire Council and Eastern Bartonshire Joint Economic Partnership. I've also attended a number of national economic forums as president of the Chamber. At all of these forums, we are often outnumbered as private sector representatives by public and third sector by 5 or 10 to 1, particularly 10 local representative groups. We are often the only people who represent the private sector. And that this has led to a feeling that of not that private sector has been taken for granted, but that sometimes their voice is not heard at all levels of government. And this is not a specific, as I say, this is a concern that has been raised at both local, Scottish and national government level. Okay. So we are hoping to build on that by producing this Rally for Growth, and we're hoping to raise questions on that. The Rally for Growth prospectus was backed up by the report produced by the Hunter Foundation on economic growth, which focused on Scotland's poor GDP performance compared to external benchmarks such as Singapore, and in particular, the failure of business birth rates and success in scaling up businesses. And we as a chamber particularly are focusing quite heavily on business birth rates and trying to support businesses in the first few years of growth, which is when the most failures happen. So from that, we have quite a series of business-focused questions to put to our candidates today, and we'll take them through that. But as I said, first of all, we're going to have an introduction from the 3 candidates today. And I'll start in the west and then move to the east, and then possibly go back from the east to go to the west. So can we start first with Jackie Bailey? Can you introduce yourself and have 2 minutes to tell us about the policies of Scottish Labour being presented at this election?
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you very much for the invitation to attend today. We, of course, have just launched our manifesto this morning. I understand Anas Sawar is speaking to the Scottish Chamber of Commerce today. I have, of course, the best gig speaking to you guys in Dunbartonshire. I think without a doubt, it's been a really challenging year. Many businesses have closed down, staff have been in furlough, and there's been a disproportionate impact on those businesses engaged in hospitality, tourism, and indeed their supply chain. So the business rates relief is indeed welcome, but other support has been slow to come. There have been difficulties for people who are self-employed, difficulties with eligibility criteria, and real challenges for you if you cover more than one local authority with 32 different interpretations of one set of criteria. So it has been challenging. The disappointing thing to note is that of the 9 billion additional funding provided by the UK government for COVID, an extraordinary amount of money, something like 4 billion of it has not been allocated and remains in the budget for the new financial year. So we propose to use some of that, unsurprisingly. We would continue the business rates relief that was passed in the budget for the full year, because we think that's an important tool for businesses. But beyond that, we need to signal that Scotland is open for business. We need to very quickly look at what we can do to get trade back up and running again. We have put in place a business transition fund, which would help growing businesses. We would refocus the Scottish National Investment Bank to do the same thing. And we have the most ambitious investment in jobs and skills ever to be seen in devolution, because we recognise that as furlough unwinds, many, many more people may well end up losing their jobs. So we're investing over £1 billion to make sure that every young person, every unemployed person has a job that pays them for the next 6-month period. A new skills benefit of £500 for those employees on furlough that need upskilling or retraining, investment in infrastructure and connectivity. And lastly, something that I'm quite pleased with locally is how we revitalise our local economy. So we've got a £75 prepaid card for every adult to spend on their high street on non-food retail, very much in keeping with your Love Local campaign. And in terms of boosting local tourism, the Great Scottish Staycation that gives you the third night free if you book 2 nights away. That's open to anybody in the UK, and indeed our common travel area to come along. But one final thought. We face huge challenges for the economy, for the remobilisation of the NHS, getting the education of our young people back on track. All of that has to be the focus for the next Parliament. So I want to see a Parliament that is focused on recovery, not on the arguments of the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving on, but staying in Dumbarton, can I ask Maurice Corrie now to tell us about proposals for the Scottish Conservatives?
Good afternoon to you, Stuart. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to join you today and to speak on this panel. First of all, we as the Scottish Conservative Unionist Party, which I represent in the Dumbarton constituency, obviously have launched our manifesto this week, earlier this week. And obviously, our prime objective is to take the country through the COVID recovery programme and also make sure that those who, particularly who have been affected by COVID, and I'm talking about those affected by the actual disease itself, have got the health support in place, and where I feel that we need to make sure we have that done in our counties of East and West Dumbartonshire. And I've particularly been involved in the mental health support unit that we've established at the Vale of Leven Hospital in December, and that's going very well indeed. And I'm glad to be part of that. So it's important that we run the two together, that we've got that support. As we then enter into the economic recovery, I welcome the Scottish Chamber of Commerce's Rally for Growth manifesto. It's an excellent piece of work, and certainly we've picked up on those points and hopefully reflect that in our manifesto as we go forward and in the future years. Now, in particular, supporting businesses, we want to obviously reopen the economy. We want to, for example, and in relation to the support that's already come from the UK government to the Scottish Government for businesses in Scotland, we want to make sure that that support continues as long as is needed. And we want to also put in place a 10-day national standard for grant applications, because too many times I've been hearing, as indeed Jackie has mentioned already, is people waiting too long, or in fact, seemingly falling through cracks. And when they've applied, and I've been involved in a few of them, helping the constituents, they've actually been accepted. So we need to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're bringing this 10-day national standard for grant application to make sure it works. Also, we want to deliver competitive business rates in the area and reflecting the true viability of areas and business groups, and making sure that we listen to what our businesses say in our local communities. We also want to bring in a skills revolution, and that's basically around training and retraining. So short, sharp courses tailored to employment opportunities, and creating a network of job security councils to swiftly find new opportunities for laid-off workers, and also deliver unlimited apprenticeships. And also the proper funding of local councils. And having been a councillor myself in local council in Argyll and Bute, I know how true this is, to enable us and enable councils to deliver effectively their services. And too long they've been starved by the current Scottish Government of resources, which you know have been passed through the Barnett formula to the Scottish Government, but haven't necessarily been passed on as they should have been. Also, within that, we will want to look at free parking within town centres for shoppers to encourage more people to shop locally. And I was involved in that, particularly in Helensburgh, where we managed to establish 2 hours of free parking for people, and it made a huge difference to that. So we'll want to roll that further out. Also, we'll be looking at infrastructure development in relation to railways and the buses and the aviation sector, and also Scottish ports, in particular, where we're looking at this free port situation. And I've been very involved recently in my regional MSP role with Greenock and the development of that in relation to a ferry service, a freight service that will go from Greenock to Rosslare in Ireland and down to Santander in Spain. And so far, the feasibility study is looking good, and hopefully to establish that in a year or two's time. Also, we want to work closely with the UK government. We feel that hasn't been happening. There's been too many blockages involved, and we want to make sure that works. And we want to make sure that we step in line and step together forward for the best parts of the economy and all the economy in Scotland. Also setting Scotland at home and abroad, and I know that having worked abroad, how important and how good and strong the brand of Scotland is, and we want to make sure we capitalise on that. Making Scotland the best place to live and work in, and also to visit, and in particular our own jewel of the crown in the two Dumbartonshires, which we know have got immense history to them, and also fantastic tourist opportunities, let alone the Firth of Clyde and obviously Loch Lomond itself and the national park. We want to also enhance the delivery of a green recovery programme in addressing the environmental issues, and also looking at green energy. So that's part of our program. And finally, we don't forget the safety of our communities, and that is looking at the local policing and how we can have more bobbies on the beat, more visual of our police and services. And I have been involved in that in relation to special constables and seeing if we can evolve more of that in our communities. So in all, it's a balanced manifesto to which we would commend to the electorate in due course. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Maurice. Again, moving on to the east, the next candidate is Katie Gordon, representing the Scottish Liberal Democrats.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation to come today. And we, like the others, we launched our manifesto last week. And I'm going to talk broadly about what our approach is to supporting business, because I hope we'll get into it as we go through the questions. So our offer as a Liberal Democrats is a liberal one. And at our heart, we want every individual to achieve their potential, and we will put recovery first. And we've had so much disruption and uncertainty caused by COVID, by Brexit, endless talk for another independence referendum, and businesses really need greater certainty to face the future. So we have, and if I talk through our plans, we have plans on education and mental health that should help make sure we have a workforce equipped for the challenge. We are focused on building up the new green industries, so major government investment in infrastructure, that's retrofitting homes, installing electric car charging points, reopening railway lines, decommissioning oil and gas rigs, rolling out superfast broadband in rural areas. There's a whole range of what we want to do. But we also need to focus on helping people to retrain and to change career if they need to. And so we're introducing a new training bond, £5,000 each, which would come also allied to careers advice to help people overcome those barriers to finding a place in these new green industries. And we want to take special care to give the regions of Scotland that are heavily invested in fossil fuels a fair transition to new industries, because there's an awful lot of skills there. We want to use the people and those skills to transition, but that's why we need the training bonds and the careers advice. We'll support growing businesses and help them with their cash flow during the recovery. So it's both the short-term immediate needs and the longer term support to grow, not just of those who are the highest likelihood of making the largest amounts of money, but actually supporting businesses all the way through and in resilience as well, and in also the innovation to transition to more green ways of operating. We will be acting to stop a jobs crisis with a job guarantee for young people and new graduate internships for small businesses. And that's recognising both the importance to support small businesses by providing them with that innovation and creativity you get from graduates, but also supporting graduates coming out into that uncertain world of work. We'll position Scotland as a good place to start and grow a small business. And we will not risk destroying trade with the rest of the UK. And we will keep close ties with our European neighbours for the benefit of business. Fundamentally, we need the next government to have a needle-sharp focus on recovery, not distracted. We want to get on with the job and repair the damage that has been done in the last 14 years to our education, health service, climate and jobs. Scottish Liberal Democrats will put the recovery first. Thank you.
Thank you, and well done for. I have started a timer which I'll try and guide people with. Although obviously, because certain candidates have gone over their 2 minutes, we must allow other candidates a chance to speak. On that topic, the final candidate moving to the west is Rona Mackay for representing the Scottish National Party in Strathkelvin and Bearsden. Rona. Hi, Rona. Sorry, you're on mute. You didn't. It's the classic.
Apologies. Thank you, Stuart, and thanks to the Barton Chamber of Commerce for organising this today. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion going forward. So there's no doubt about it. The past year has been disastrous for businesses, not just in Scotland, but throughout the world. And no one knows that, I guess, more than the people in this meeting today. And the pandemic has been brutal. I'm just going to give a brief overview in my opening comments, and I know we'll get into more detail as the session goes on. The Scottish Government has provided over £3 billion support to businesses in Scotland since the beginning of the pandemic. My council, East Dunbartonshire, and other agencies have distributed more than 20 million to local businesses. And I really do want to put my thanks on record to them, because I think all local authorities have performed a Herculean task to get the money out as quickly as they could to keep businesses afloat. And thanks too to Business Gateway and many of the other sectoral agencies for their great efforts, and of course for the excellent daily updates from the Scottish Chamber of Commerce, which have been coming in and are very helpful. So as an MSP during the last session of Parliament, I know how COVID has impacted business, with our casework inquiries going up more than about 35% since last year. Going from around more than 700 cases to more than 1,100 cases. And I know my colleagues on the call here will have experienced similar rises in inquiries. So the aim of the government at the start of the pandemic was to get money out as quickly as possible to as many businesses as possible. And of course, there were gaps in the beginning, and those were dealt with when it became evident that some businesses and people were falling through the gap. I mean, as has been said, retail, hospitality and leisure have been probably the biggest casualties. And in that regard, the Scottish Government's providing restart grants of up to 7,500 for retailers and up to 19,500 for hospitality and leisure reopening next week. And we're also extending the 100% business rates relief for retail, leisure, hospitality and aviation businesses for the whole of the next financial year. So high streets have taken a beating, so we plan to publish a retail strategy and to build in the highly successful Scotland Loves Local campaign by investing a further £10 million to revitalise the high streets post-pandemic, and we also plan to introduce a loyalty scheme. So we're now at a point where the grants being offered include sectoral schemes not available in the rest of the UK and that weren't available earlier on in the pandemic, such as funds for wedding business, sector businesses, independent brewers, ski centres, and there's now more than £40 million being paid to newly self-employed people and mobile close contact service providers such as beauticians and hairdressers. And I know that we did get a lot of inquiries from people as the months went on saying, you know, what about me? So all these things now have been hopefully addressed, and local authorities have received £120 million for a discretionary fund, which can help people who have fallen through the cracks in the other sectoral ways. So we're continuing to invest in the small business bonus scheme, and that benefits more than 100,000 businesses throughout Scotland. And of course, there's the Scottish Business Pledge, which almost 800 businesses at the last count had pledged so far for that. There is much more to say, obviously, about investment in infrastructure and jobs and skills, but I mean, I think I'm probably running up to my 2 minutes, so I'm happy to answer questions as we go on, and looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all the candidates for their brief presentations. So we're going to kick off with the questions. And the first question comes from Moise Nurbal. Moise, can you unmute yourself?
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for Chamber, and thank you for the candidates being here today. So my name is Moise Nurbal. My question is, what are your party's business investment priorities to steer Scotland's economy as we reopen, which supports business, boosts growth and creates jobs?
We're going to, as I indicated previously, we're going to have a lead answer, and I'm going to, having gone west to east for the first set of presentations, I'm now going to go east to west on the answers. So for the first question, could I ask Rona to take the lead as the lead answer, and then I'll ask for contributions from the other candidates.
Thanks, Stuart, and thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, well, we're investing £500 million in jobs and skills, you know, as part of the recovery. There's a massive COVID recovery plan that we have in our manifesto, a lot of it relating to infrastructure, of course, which will create jobs. 100,000 affordable homes is planned. And, you know, we recognise that the damage that has been done to businesses, and we will continue to monitor that. So I think we need to get people confident that they can have jobs, they can keep spending, which will of course generate throughout the economy. So our focus is absolutely on getting the country back on its feet, and that is our absolute primary focus. So jobs and skills, young people have been severely hit over the past year. And, you know, we have a jobs and a training guarantee for young people. So we need to get the message out that, I mean, I think it's Jackie that said Scotland is open for business. And we will keep, you know, a very close eye on every aspect of what's needing to be done in Scotland. And we have a robust manifesto to do that. Thank you,
Rona, for that. Can I ask the other candidates to come in on that? I'll start with Katie. She's got her hand up. Katie, you'd like to start with us on that?
Yes, indeed. So I referenced it a bit in my earlier remarks. I mean, we're absolutely focused on this green recovery, but I think often it's talked about, people don't always know what does that actually mean in terms of practicalities. My whole background has been in working with businesses and working with young people in that intersection between education and employment. So we are very, very focused on developing and investing that huge amount of COVID recovery funding in the new green businesses of the future. So one of the key priorities for us is warmer homes. We want to make that a strategic priority, the whole area of retrofitting existing homes, and then also looking at building new homes as well. So there's a huge amount of new jobs potentially there, and also potential to retrain and get into those jobs. Supporting transport, so reopening railway lines, that's one of the things we did really successfully with the Borders Railway. We want to explore the potential for that. And we also want to look at electric car charging points. We need a whole network across the country. And we need to make sure that public sector vehicles are all able to use electric car charging points, so that the transition is there and the public sector has a stake in maintaining this network. So there's more jobs and growth there. There's more work to be done in terms of supporting small businesses, actually. I think the valuing of micro and small businesses has traditionally been focused on high growth and high potential. And we've listened to businesses about saying, well, we may not be a high growth business, but actually we're still contributing to the economy. And so many of our businesses are small businesses. And also sometimes they struggle to know how to be able to transition or to afford to transition to more environmentally friendly practices. So we want to provide free advice to all businesses, and basically to look at the way the enterprise advice is provided to support small businesses, to ensure that we are helping at every stage. And we also want to overhaul the whole public sector procurement policies to make sure that local suppliers, micro bidders are all, they're not disadvantaged. And we want to make sure that there are properly local partnerships for growth. So not centralizing everything has been done in the last 14 years, but actually saying local decision making, local discussion between local colleges, local councils, the enterprise agencies, making that work, and with chambers of commerce, making those partnerships work where you can tackle very specific plans for what's needed for growth in different areas. So I could go on about a whole range of other areas, but those are the kind of core of what I wanted to add in there.
Okay, thanks, Katie. You might have heard in the background, I am trying to keep a timer just to try and keep things to 2 minutes, and I am sending candidates a sort of final 30-second reminder via the messaging on the chat. So Jackie Bailey has her hand up, and so Jackie next, then we'll come to Morris finally. Jackie, if you'd like to respond, please.
Thank you very much, and it shows there's a degree of consensus emerging already. Certainly in terms of what Katie said, Labour has plans to ensure that much more procurement is done locally, because we recognise the impact it will have on the local economy. We are too investing in construction jobs for affordable housing, for retrofitting of homes to tackle fuel poverty. But the two growth issues we've identified, I touched on earlier, which is to refocus the Scottish National Investment Bank on seed funding for new ideas for growth, and in particular to transition to green and digital futures, and our Business Transition Fund, which is absolutely about growth opportunities for SMEs, and that would be an immediate thing. The other immediate actions I've already outlined, but that's our Save the High Street retail offer of a £75 voucher and the Great Scottish Staycation. Book now.
Thanks, Jackie. Yes, I think we're all looking forward to trying to get away some sort of holiday at some point over this year. My holiday in Arran was cancelled at Easter, and I'm desperately trying to find somewhere I can rebook. So yes, that is, I think holidays for everybody is something that I think we popular policy for whichever party promoted it. Could I finally turn to Morris Corrie to come in with his opinion, please, Morris. Morris, sorry again, the classic. Yep, you're on.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I just unmuted myself. Thanks, Chair. Yes, no, interesting points coming out from everybody. But as I say, we're obviously want to make sure the economic recovery is steady and proceeds after the recovery of the COVID pandemic. And also we want to make sure that we've got to support the drivers of the economy, and that's businesses, and particularly small to medium-sized businesses. So we want to make sure that they are not burdened with heavy business rates. There's a proper competitive business rate system in place. We also want to make sure they've got the skills they need. So if it's training or retraining of people who've been laid off or who have lost their jobs, sadly, we want to make sure that they have access to trained skills. And therefore, we want to deliver an unlimited apprenticeship scheme. On the relation to funding of local councils, included in that is obviously encouragement and, if necessary, by regulation, procurement policies that would actually give small, medium-sized local businesses the opportunity to supply councils with whatever services are required. and fundamentally to make sure that funding is structured properly from national government to local government for the needs of the council's operations. And also free parking I referred to before in town centres, so we encourage people to come to our towns. Yes, selling Scotland, obviously our hospitality industry is very important indeed, and indeed other industries throughout Scotland and throughout our area. And we want to make sure we sell Scotland properly for people to come there and enjoy and working and living in the area, as I said before. But also we want to make sure communications are good. So we are forecasting broadband to be well in place by 2027, and that's full fibre broadband. So that's something that's fundamental. But from that point of view, we want to make sure that we support and finally support our drivers of the economy, and the business people are extremely important to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice, and thank you everybody for keeping within the time scale and responding to my gentle prompts. Moise, do you have any feedback or any points you wish to make to any of the candidates following from that?
I would say thank you for all of you coming back, and I hear quite loudly and clearly about youth skills development, etc. So if you don't mind, Chair, if I can just follow up on something, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Just wondering on questions. So I support through the Kickstart Gateway program, young people getting into employment. And some of the areas that we have issues with is through the government in trying to get this to actually happen. So currently in Scotland, I've got about 170 vacancies waiting for young people to get filled into. That's where we are at the moment. How would you, support me in trying to make that happen? And secondly, the difficulties that I have with government in terms of making this happen for businesses. So currently I have 70 business in the pending pile to get into the scheme and for them to wanting to recruit young people. So you've all talked about young people and importance of young people getting into jobs and skills, etc. But as a small business, as a private business, I find it extremely difficult to make that happen for businesses that are excited about getting young people into employment.
Okay. Again, we'll go through. Rona, can you take your response to that first, and then we'll go through the same order as before. Rona, then Katie, then Jackie, then Maurice on that. Again, can we keep it? Try and keep it down. Can we keep it brief to a minute, even though it is, I understand, a fresh question.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Moise, for that. That's really interesting. And I mean, the beauty of this sort of forum is that we can hear, difficulties that you're having, etc. in that regard. Can you maybe just clarify what the blocks are? You're saying you're finding it difficult to get young people into the scheme. In what practical sense is that happening? Because
yeah, so let's just say I got a letter yesterday saying the 70 businesses that are in the pending pile have all been rejected, every single one, with no explanation, and literally it's come to a stop. Yeah, yes, that's the letter I got yesterday. As an example, on the recruitment aspect, where we've got those 170 that we're still pending, the vacancies haven't even been put live on the system, and the business has been waiting since March, in mid-March, late March. Waiting for those vacancies to be put on the system. So that's two practical, real examples that are happening.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have an answer for you. I'll be frank about it, but I'll certainly feed that back because that's really important. You shouldn't be facing obstacles like that to get the scheme moving. So thanks for that, and I'll definitely feed that back. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Yep.
Okay, so great question. It is all about the practicalities. I've been in this sector, in this area for years, and I know that the biggest trouble, particularly small businesses have, is the time and the complication of schemes that are set up, well-meaning, but don't always work. You cannot make these schemes work if you do not have the public sector support, the wraparound to make sure it happen. I work at a university, and we have had ScotGrad, which has managed all those kind of graduate level internships. That's one model, but it needed a number of staff, public sector employed. I worked in Career Scotland for Skills Development Scotland, and we had a whole unit that worked with businesses to provide this support. You cannot expect small businesses themselves to navigate through complicated systems. What you need is very clear, very easily accessible, with funding very obvious methods, and you need processes that work to support both the young people, so giving them feedback so they learn, so that next time they apply, they've learned from the last time, and you feedback to businesses and work with businesses when they're designing their opportunities to shape it into something that's understandable for young people. So we've got a lot of experience in that. That's partly why we've linked our retraining bond to careers advice, is to make sure these things work effectively. And the graduate internships that we're introducing, the 2,000 graduate internships, that will be done through a partnership of AGCAS Scotland, which is the professional body for career services and universities, and probably Skills Development Scotland. So it's about understanding public sector needs to support this. You can't do it on no money. You do need the infrastructure.
Okay, thanks very much, Katie. Jackie, you are next up. Thank you.
Thank you. Largely agree with what much of Katie has said. I used to work in this field of community economic development a long time ago. But of course, this is a UK scheme that you're referring to, the Kickstart scheme. And obviously you need to understand why those businesses have been rejected, because it otherwise makes it very difficult for you to plan and manage the expectations of the young people as well. But I think all of our training proposals are set in the context of delivery by the public, private and voluntary sector working together. We have, in addition to the skills benefit that I talked about for retraining and upskilling people on furlough, we would actually boost the Kickstart scheme. So if my memory is right, it lasts for 6 months. We would extend the time that it would be available for. And there's not as if there's not a pool of people desperate for this. You know, we just added another 15,000 young people to the unemployment register in Scotland just in the last week or so. Things are going to get a lot worse. I don't think people fully appreciate just how bad it's going to be. So the glitches in the system that you're describing need to be sorted out very quickly indeed if we're going to meet the demand that is coming down the track at us. And finally, the other thing I would say is we are looking at a jobs for recovery scheme that would give people not in education or training 6 months of actually a real job paid more than the minimum wage, helping our local economy, both businesses and the public sector, but giving them valuable experience. And again, well, we will want to partner with training organisations to make sure that's delivered appropriately.
Thanks, Jackie. And finally, Maurice, would you like to respond on this point?
Hi, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Maurice, very interesting what you're saying. I mean, having been running founding small businesses myself and running them and working in bigger businesses, I realize the frustrations you face with government red tape. And this is something that's inexcusable. Some of it is a lack of the understanding by the government officials of what the businesses are about. So, you know, we need to make that clear. And certainly what we want to do as a party is to work closely with businesses and indeed with local government to ensure that it reflects the needs of that particular area and what they need to do in the young people. And being the father of 4 young people, I know fully well how difficult it is to get our kids in place and in the right careers that they want. But it takes not just government, political parties, it takes parents also. So we're looking towards how we can help parents help their children through the early stages of their career and their job. And there are so many good institutions in the west of Scotland that are excellent at doing this. And I will cite one particular one, the City of Glasgow College is brilliant at it. So if we can model ourselves on some of that, and that's something I've put up into my party as far as planning for the future for our young people. And of course, finally, finishing my points about the skills revolution and the training and retraining is important. But yeah, we'll look deeply at the Scottish Chambers of Commerce report for Rally for Growth, because in there, there'll be parts of that we'll want to push forward. But thank you, Maurice, for that very interesting comment. And I know, and I feel for you because I've been there. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We will have to try and move on because time is moving on. The next question comes from Lucinda Hunter, and we're going to ask Katie Gordon to be the lead answerer on that, because Katie, as she's already said, will have to go at 1:30. So could I ask Lucinda Hunter, please, to ask her question?
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, candidates, for your interesting presentations. My name is Lucinda Hunter. I'm a solicitor with Rennie McInnes. And my question is, what will you do to ease the considerable cost burdens placed on business? And also, do you plan to put forward any new costs or taxes on business in the next Parliament?
Thank you. I said, Katie, can we have you as a lead answer on this question?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Lucinda, for that question. We are very, very aware of the pressures on business that we've been under, particularly through COVID. And so we're not planning any major changes in tax in the near future, because we know you need time to recover. We are thinking in terms of, though, what we want to do is we do want to reform business rates and take the burden off high street retailers. That's one area where we think people have been unfairly hampered compared to online retail, and that's been a big issue, you know, in many countries. We really need to tackle that, and it can't wait, because I think that's businesses are suffering all the time now, and because of COVID, a lot more is transferred online, but it's been a challenge for smaller businesses to do that transition. So we also want to provide free business advice to support businesses with that aspect. We do also support a land value element for that kind of tax. That's basically to avoid penalising those businesses which improve their properties or install renewables or make their customers safer from COVID. So it's about focusing on the land value aspect, which should also help tackle the use of underused sites. So when when developers land bank businesses, and so they can't, they're not used, and then, you know, it's to try and rebalance that. But we also want to give local authorities, thinking about localism, we want to give local authorities more control of the level of tax and relief, so that they can really shape it in partnership with what's needed in that area, talking to organisations like the Chamber of Commerce, the enterprise agencies, and working with local businesses to see what exactly is going to work, because it's not a one size fits all. You know, the difference between rural and urban areas can be very stark in that aspect. We also know there's been, I think there was a study somewhere else in the UK that concluded that if we did this kind of switch, it would also help high streets to develop as community hubs, so that you kind of make it a much more alive high street, as we've noticed during COVID. And we're also focused on giving local authorities many more powers to reshape the city as well, so that the landscape and what it looks like is going to be more effective. So there's a huge amount of what we want to do in terms of transitioning as well to the greener economy, is recognise that that can have costs, and that you need advice and support for that, rather than being penalised. So what we want to do is basically restructure business advice, and to make it much more local and much more focused on supporting businesses, particularly small businesses, at every stage of their growth or maintenance of what they are. So like I said in my earlier remarks, it's not about just saying we only back the high growth businesses. And so that's about making sure that we have a kind of a wraparound support. And then finally, just to say that I'd mentioned rebalancing procurement processes in the past. We want to make sure that local businesses, smaller businesses, get more opportunity to bid fairly. So we're going to try and rebalance procurement to sort of focus it more, so it's a more level playing field. So that's kind of the range of what I would say. So no major tax increases, but we do think there's a case for reforming business rates, land value element, massive support, more support for businesses to transition.
Thank you, Katie. Moving next to Jackie. Tax, a favourite topic for all politicians. Can you please provide us with Labour's position?
Absolutely. We all like talking about it, but nobody really likes paying for it. But there you go. Can I just make 4 observations? Because I absolutely get that we need to minimise the cost burden placed on businesses, but equally we need to fund some of the public large-scale interventions that are going to help the economy and our country recover. So it is a balance. But what I absolutely take from Lucinda's question is that you want certainty. And again, I think it is about saying to people, we need to take time to recover, and that must be the priority before we start looking at raising income. That said, we would review business rates, we would set up a task force, that would involve FSB, Chambers of Commerce, CBI Scotland, to look at this, because there isn't a single view. I have to say the Scottish Government's narrow remit to their business review, business rates review, hasn't been helpful because it didn't even touch on the digital economy. We need to look at that. What we would propose certainly in 22-23 is a 20% reduction in non-grocery bricks and mortar business rates, with a compensating 20% increase in non-grocery bricks and mortar retail warehousing. Some might like to call it Amazon for shorthand. So we would be doing that. We also believe in scrapping the council tax, replacing it with another property-based tax. We are looking at the social responsibility levy, which would hit supermarkets. I don't think any of you on the call are large retail supermarkets, so you can breathe a sigh of relief on that one. And our intention is not to raise income tax over the next 5 years of the Parliament. We think if we get our jobs, skills and economy interventions right, then actually our ambition should be to grow the tax base. And that is the way to lever in more income. We've done some studies on the leverage you would get if you get people back into work. If we have to do it though, and our manifesto position is we don't want to, we would be looking at those earning over £100,000. But I've got to be honest with you, the tax take from that actually is quite minimal, and the extent to which people try and avoid it makes it something that perhaps is not profitable. So our opening position is we don't want to raise taxes.
Jackie, thanks very much for that. Maurice, can we come to you? Progressing, still doing our east to west, east to west progression again.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Yes, our party on that top point that Jackie just finished on is, yes, our party is not in favour of raising taxes. We want to incentivise people to bring opportunity to Scotland and therefore create jobs, and that would be a disincentive if one was starting to raise taxes. But let's talking about, and Lucinda, on your point about cost burdens on businesses, yeah, absolutely. Again, I understand that fully, having been there. But I think what our policy is to, given that we've got the continued uncertainty on the economy, we would look to offer at least 25% rates relief to businesses in 2022 and 23. And the exact level will be dependent on the economic conditions at the time. But also we would want to maintain the poundage rate freeze until 2023 revaluation. But there will be a wholesale review, and this is what we want to do, of the business rate system, which others have referred to as well, before the end of the Parliament. And we would seek also, we want to retain the small business bonus scheme and introduce a more tapered scheme on rates relief for businesses with a rateable value of, say, for example, 15,000 and 20,000 to remove the cliff edge on relief, because we have that happening from cases from time to time. But all in all, we want to make sure that we support businesses and we identify, it's not one size fits all. We want to make sure that we talk and dialogue with business community and ensure that we get the best result for everybody concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. And finally on this, Rona, would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the Scottish Government has no plans to introduce new costs or taxes in business in the next Parliament. I don't think that would be helpful to recovery. We will, of course, continue to invest in the small bonus business scheme, and we will extend the business rates relief for the next year. We're planning to gradually reduce the large business supplement over the course of the Parliament to ensure that the largest businesses pay the same combined poundage in Scotland as in England, and higher poundage in properties where the owners are registered in tax havens is an important part of that. Planning to maintain the business growth accelerator to remove rates liabilities for the first 12 months after occupation of a new build and fresh start scheme, and to remove liabilities for first 12 months after occupation of previously empty property. We are planning to introduce tech sector hubs in Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dundee, Glasgow and Inverness, and that'll be backed by £30 million to create jobs in the tech sector, including net zero data centres and green jobs. and investing £100 million to help small and medium businesses get access to digital skills and equipment. So I think it's just about moving forward and looking to the future and giving every possible incentive to businesses to do that, not to burden them with more taxes.
Thank you, Rona. Yes, I'm glad to hear that there is consensus on not filing additional taxes on certainly small and medium-sized enterprises who represent quite a large number of chamber members. It is one of the features of the Rally for Growth proposals. So, Lucinda, do you have any feedback or follow-up on that question?
No, just to say thank you very much for your very full answers. And I agree with Stuart. It sounds like there's some consensus and some sensible thoughts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I managed to unmute myself there. Sorry, our next question will be from Sharon Colvin, and the lead answer on that will be Maurice Corey, and then the next question will then take from Jackie Bailey. I think Katie may have to go shortly. So Katie, thanks very much for your for coming along today, and I'm going to wish all the candidates the end best luck in the forthcoming election. So I'll wish you that just now whilst you take your leave of us.
And thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm so sorry I can't stay longer.
Thank you. Okay, so question is from Sharon Colvin, Director at Glenhead Engineering, and lead answer will be Maurice Corey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How will you look to boost Scotland's exporting potential and mitigate the ongoing impacts of Brexit?
Maurice, yep, can you come off mute and take the question? The questions all appear in the chat for everybody, so that you've got the questions in the chat. And if we could ask Maurice to respond first. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sharon, for that very good question. Having worked in the overseas and export markets, I understand fully where you're coming from. And I think this business of Brexit, yeah, there are obviously issues that are being ironed out, but I'm glad to hear that things at Dover Port, for example, the ferry services, the trucks moving through there are moving through as normal. We heard that report on Monday. So things are getting back to normal. Paperwork seems to be running more smoothly. I think basically we must make sure that access to the markets are good and clear, and that they're competitive for businesses in this country to move forward. And particularly in your company in Glenhead Engineering, where you're offering an expertise in engineering, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, we need to do more to make sure that the Scottish engineering businesses are known about on the continent, throughout the world. And by doing that, we need to make sure that they are aware of all the products. So I would be wanting those to be pushed as far as possible through the British Embassy commercial section, commercial teams to those markets. And I've been working, as I said earlier on in my opening narrative, on a ferry route from Greenock through to Rosslare in Ireland to Santander to get our food products, for example, and drink products to the European markets now that we're no longer in the European Union. I've operated before in the East, before it was the European Union. And managed to succeed with that, and we will do it again. So I don't believe there are many barriers to it, but we just have to work our way through it and make sure that we capitalize for the best for Scottish engineering. So I wish you well on that, but certainly our party will be supporting you, and there's no question we will want to make sure that it's as smooth as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Jackie, can you come in on this now, please?
Yep, there's no doubt in my mind we need to boost exports. That's how we generate additional growth to the country. And I think, you know, people have experienced difficulty if their main export market is to the EU. And whilst that may be improving, the reality is there are still continuing logistical problems there that we need to sort out, because otherwise that is going to impede business, it's going to impede growth. The thing that interests me is the access to global markets. As somebody who was born and brought up in Hong Kong, I understand how you know, some of these markets operate. They are at pace, and it is about who's going to supply them quickest to the best quality, but at the keenest price. But I'm not sure what's going to change after COVID. I think global markets might well change a little. I base this on nothing other than we have become much more local during the pandemic. So I wonder what that means for markets, and we need to be very alive to that. But we have real opportunities. Scotland is good at e-commerce. We don't invest in it enough, but we really should do more of it. We've got more logistics options. And as free trade agreements come on, I see the potential there for us to exploit. Scottish engineering, I have huge admiration for as an organisation, you know, given that I know the person who's the CEO and he came from our local area. I think there's a partnership there between Scottish engineering and the government to actually try and make sure we can identify opportunities, exploit them, and do well out of them. You know, I'm very conscious just up the road from here at the moment is Agreco, you know, one of the great engineering companies in my view, that has a global footprint and is really successful. We need to kind of, you know, learn from their experience, piggyback on them as well to ensure that we are punching above our weight locally.
Again, thank you, Jackie. Again, thank you for responding to my prompt. That's very good. And finally, on this topic, Rona, could you like to come in, please? Oh no, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Stuart, and thanks for the question, Sharon. Yeah, exports. I mean, under this government, exports are up 63%, and in 2018 they were valued at 33.8 billion. There's no doubt about it. Brexit has been damaging, as was widely predicted, and so we'd push the UK government to try and access the EU single market, fallen on deaf ears before, but we would continue to do that. We're also going to look at introducing direct links to international markets from Scottish ports and airports, and an inward border post to serve as Cairnryan, linking us to Ireland. Scottish green ports are a big part of our plans as well, and businesses would benefit from package of tax and customs and incentive, as well as obviously the Fair Work First agenda, etc. And that's at draft stage at the moment, but that's a big plan for us. We'd also increase the number of trade and investment hubs we have in Europe to promote Scottish products and innovation, and with a new base in each of the Scandinavian and Baltic regions, which we can closely identify with, and I think that's very important. So looking forward internationally is a real priority, and we have to mitigate the effects of Brexit, which we knew were coming, but we are working to do that as hard as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Rona. Scottish Chambers of Commerce have assisted with the export. We had some funding pre-pandemic from Scottish Government to try and open up trade routes directly, on the basis that we felt that rather than government agencies talking to government agencies, sometimes it was better to have people directly involved in the industries to talk to each other. And I think that was successful, although it has been affected by the pandemic. And we are hoping that that will continue with whoever is elected as the government from May 6th. Sharon, would you like to come back with any feedback on that, or any questions?
It's great to hear that they are so interested in this area. Part of our biggest concern at the moment is actually importing. Huge delays getting goods into the UK, predominantly from Germany and Belgium. So any assistance and any improvements on all this going forward can only be beneficial to all small manufacturing companies.
Yeah. Okay, we'll now turn to a question from Damon Scott, our Chief Executive. Damon, you have a question for the panel.
Yes, thanks. Just managing to unmute myself. So yeah, it's going back to a bit covering a bit of the ground earlier, but maybe if we could get a bit more in depth, and this links in with the network calls. So our members are calling for a relationship reset between business and parliamentarians. We want this to be deeper and the policy to be more aligned with the needs of the business community. I'd like to know what the candidates' parties' plans are to make this happen, please. You're on mute, Stuart.
Sorry, it's just trying to hit the button. Can we go to our lead answer on that to Jackie, and then we'll go to Rona, and then we'll go to Morris. Okay.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you, Damon, for the question. I mean, I operate on the principle that Scotland is a small country. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. We know each other. We can talk to each other quickly. We can test things out, and if we get them wrong, we can fix them quickly. But I'm a great believer in evidence-based policy making, and there is absolutely no point parliamentarians who maybe don't have a background in business deciding what they think is right for business without actually talking to you and consulting you and not having you as the token person in the room. I want to get things right. In fact, it was my party, for example, that suggested 5 years ago that we have a retail strategy after a consultation with the Scottish Retail Consortium. It's taken 5 years and we've not had it yet, and it's still being promised. And we haven't got time to hang around. So I would want to, in every aspect of what we do, involve businesses in those discussions, listen to you, act on what you say, and if you're wrong, let's have that debate, but to do it in a very grown-up fashion. There is nothing stopping that from happening, not just at a national level, but also at a local level, because we understand that the priorities sometimes locally might be different to what's being pursued at a national level. It is just nonsense not to have you in the room participating in those discussions that are so significant for the future of our country, because it is a shared future. You want your businesses to grow. I want them to grow so that they contribute to providing jobs for my local community and contribute to expanding the tax base. What's not to like about having you in the room?
Thank you, Jackie. Rona, would you like to come in on this point? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Stuart. I very much agree with Jackie that there's, I think we absolutely have to cooperate to get the country back on its feet. And I think, the reset button is now basically, and we should be cooperating. I mean, I actually think businesses and government have been working fairly well during the pandemic in terms of, us trying to listen to what you're saying and what you need. And, I think that's worked pretty well, but there's so much more that could be done jointly. And we absolutely do need to interact together. So your rally for growth, and I don't know what I think we're going to be interacting as much as we can with that. The Scottish Business Pledge, just to go back, I think it was the opening remarks of Stuart, you were talking about more interaction with private companies. I had a wee look at the signatories to that pledge, and there's around 800 of them. A lot of them were private companies, and I would like to see that go on. I mean, all these, as much cooperation as possible is absolutely vital in my opinion, because in that way we can plan, you can plan, and we're going to get the best outcome. So yeah, I absolutely think we need to do that, and I'm sure we will be doing that, because now's the time we have to come together.
Thank you, Rona. Morris, would you like to round up the responses to this question?
Sure, absolutely. I think my colleagues have said a lot of very valid points, and I can't disagree with them. I think they're very valid. But what I would like to say, and to talk from a business point of view, is that businesses are vital partners in any discussions in the economy, and it's very, very important that is adhered to, and anything that is needed that's going to establish that, because after all, they are the revenue makers, and therefore to our taxation, whether it be through income tax or corporation tax, that is absolutely vital. So we as a party would like to bring in and bring forward an enterprise bill establishing an economic development agency in each region of Scotland, and this would enable us to create lasting partnerships between businesses and government at both local and national level, and also look towards building very appropriate work on growth deals, etc., that might be needed. So again, I come back to my situation of saying that no one size fits all. We need to look at it individually, and I absolutely support what Damon's saying in the fact that we need to work and walk forward together. And I know that from bitter experience, it's so important, because that's the way we can keep people in work, we can keep the economy driving forward, and we're working in partnership. And I think that's the biggest word, is partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Damon, do you have any follow-up on that?
I guess just to, it's encouraging to hear the positive, commitments there to work with business. I guess, talk is cheap. So I think we'd like to see, some real tangible outputs to commit to that ask. And I guess, having a look at the chamber in particular as being a really good conduit to making that happen, and keeping the businesses engaged with the feeding through to the sort of government thinking and policy.
Okay. Thanks for that, Damon. That's good. Okay, I'll go. Sorry, I'll just have to shift screens to get to my agenda to find that our next question is from Jason George of Columbus Telecom. Jason has got a question on non-domestic rates.
Hi there, thank you, Chair. I'm just leading on from the brief details about business rates. Business rates are the most significant tax on business in Scotland. This is a system that's widely perceived to be broken and unfair, and this is according to a Scottish Government Commission report by the Town Centre Review Action Group. Will you commit to considering a further review of this system and work with business to ensure that it is fair and progressive tax that does not impede economic recovery? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I've slightly lost the place. I did say there was going to be an order of the next person who's going to be the primary answer of that. Can everybody remember who it was, or will I just have to pick somebody at random from the candidates?
I think I went first last time, but I'm happy to go first again.
Okay, well, one volunteer is better than 10 pressed men, as they say. So, Jackie, would you like to go first?
Yes. And my response will be very quick and very simple. Yes, on the basis that I'd already signalled we would set up a task force to review business rates, because we haven't captured, for example, those businesses that are predominantly digital. And I've already had a discussion with the FSB. I think somebody else may have had it with the chambers about the possibility of such a review. Now, I have to say there isn't unanimity of opinion. This is going to be a difficult one, but you're quite right. The last review was too narrow. It missed the opportunity to reset the system, which is exactly what is needed. So yes.
Sorry, there we go. Thank you, Jackie, for that. Rona, would you like to come in on this? The previous rates review was, there was some input from the chamber on that. I was at a meeting with Nicola Sturgeon where the topic came up, and I appreciate that members of the chamber sat on it. Would you like to expand on the SNP's position on this, Rona?
Sure, thanks, Stuart. Firstly, my answer is pretty short as well. Yes, and I agree with Jason's comments that something needs to be done. Every incentive possible needs to be given to businesses, and this would be the way to do it. Forgive me, I don't know when that last review was done. If maybe somebody could enlighten me on that.
We'll get that to you in the chat. It has been presented within the last 2 years, to be fair.
2 years. That's fine. Yeah, I just wondered the approximate timescale. Well, I mean, I think again we keep using the word reset, and I think it's again this is the time to do it. So I would yes, an absolute further review of the system would be definitely desirable from our party's point of view.
Okay. Thanks, Rhoda. And Maurice, would you like to round off this topic?
We'll unmute. Thank you. Yeah, Chair. Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, Jason, very good question and short and sharp. Yes, we ourselves also, as the Scottish Conservatives, would want to undertake a wholesale review of business rate system because it has thrown up a lot of irregularities and unfairness, and we would like to do that before the end of the next Parliament. So yes, absolutely. And we were wanting to talk to businesses and people who are the actual payers of any rates, etc., to see where we need to put the regulations straight. So thank you for that question. A very important question, but very much on side on that. Thank you.
Okay. Jason, would you like to come back on that topic at all?
I'd just like to thank everybody for those comments. That's positive from all the candidates, so that's good to hear. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. And we're looking for a question from Eric Archer on climate change. Eric.
Thanks, Stuart. Just unmuting myself.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is a climate change topic and very topical as well. A green recovery is often pitched at the solution to post-COVID economic recovery. So, given that, how will you ensure that real economic legacy is created that creates highly skilled jobs and opportunities for all in that sector?
Okay. Maurice, you ended the last questions. You want to start again? You want to start on this one again?
Hi, Eric. Nice to hear from you. Thanks for that question. Yeah, I mean, we are committed as a party, Scottish Conservatives, to the application of green recovery policy. And that's very much, in fact, we're announcing UK-wide, UK level, sorry, government level, shortly about bringing forward the zero carbon issue by 15 years. So we want to make sure we're doing that, but also with the development of green recovery, we want to make sure that there are jobs there created, and there will be. And hopefully that will work and sort of walk in line and in step with the economic recovery program as we come out of COVID and obviously the COVID recovery. So we will be focusing on green recovery and to ensure that happens. And we've already begun to see elements of that getting into place. And also I must say that it's incumbent on every one of us in this country to also use common sense in that recovery program, because it isn't just government, but it's ourselves have also got to walk forward in that footprint as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Maurice. Rona, would you're slightly piggy in the middle between the two Dumbarton candidates, but
okay.
So I'll come to you on this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you know, we are absolutely committed to a green future. We have, you know, ambitious climate change targets moving towards a, you know, with transition to zero carbon emissions, and we are investing heavily in green jobs in the economy. I've already mentioned the green ports, but basically I think now everything that we do has to be with a view to making it sustainable and green. I genuinely I think we actually don't have the luxury of time anymore. We have to do it now. We've got the big conference hopefully coming to Glasgow at the end of the year. I think that will be enlightening, and I think it will probably be a bit alarming to see how far that we all have to go to try and you know and get to where we want to be, so that we don't actually continue to wreck the planet. So yes, I mean, huge investment from us in green jobs, as I've already mentioned, the green ports and the tech sector. It's all part of it, and everything that we do has to be with a view. And I think to be fair, that's across the board with every party. Everything has to be with a view to having a green, sustainable future.
Thanks, Rona. And finally, Jackie, would you like to come in on this topic?
Yep, thank you very much. I think now it's now a way of life and the way that we do business. And our climate recovery plan sets out our ambition to get to net zero by 2045. I think the reality is You know, successive governments have gone for the low-hanging fruit. It now gets much more serious and much harder to do. Some of the key measures we'll be taking are retrofitting homes that everybody seems to be doing a degree of, but we want to get to every home for an energy efficiency rating of C or higher by 2030. That we think will create about 7,500 jobs. We'll establish a national housing agency so that we can roll out insulation, double glazing, boiler replacement and renewable heat. We're going to double the number of homes that we renovate annually to 80,000, and we're going to provide grants to low and middle income households whilst providing interest-free loans for others to pay for upgrades up to £18,000, targeting fuel poor and rural homes first. So that will contribute to all of that. In addition, as part of our jobs programme, we are going to start up a Scottish Conservation Corps who will be dedicated to restoring our natural environment. We'll probably get involved in planting some of the 15,000 hectares of trees that are being proposed. And you know, all of that taken together will create jobs, but will also help to protect our natural environment.
Thank you, Jackie. Eric, do you have any follow-ups on that?
Yeah, thanks all for your comments, and you're all ticking the boxes. It'll be good to see the reality of it on the ground and how some of this delivered. And also Jackie was spot on when she said that a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been picked, i.e. changing light bulbs, etc. I think it becomes increasingly difficult, and that's going to be the test in terms of those who are putting their hands up and saying we're seriously addressing this. So I look forward to that, and thank you all for your responses.
Thank you, Eric. Time is moving on. We have one final question, which I will read out because it came from Mary Ann Smith, who is not with us, and it's we'll just have a quick roundup. So we just ask candidates to restrict their response to 1 minute on this. And the question, if I can pull it up, is equality. What plans do you have to address the impact the pandemic has had on equality for women who have been disproportionately affected? That's from Mary Ann Smith. And Rona, could I ask you to kick this one off just briefly, and then we'll try and wrap it up on time. Thank you.
Yes, sure. I'm really glad that this is a really important question that's come up. We need to do everything we can to close the gender equality gap. Women make a huge contribution to the Scottish economy, but only 20% of Scottish business space is owned by women, and we need to improve on that. So we plan to create a dedicated women's business centre to provide support, advice and training to women looking to start or expand their businesses, and that'll be backed by £50 million over the course of the Parliament. So it's a really, really important focus. We need to do it quickly, and we need to do it meaningfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Rona. Maurice, do you want to come in on this again, just briefly?
Chair, yeah, no, very important. I think we need women in business. I've worked with many women in business, and are very able indeed they are. And we just must make sure that we encourage and help them. After all, being the mothers and you know, and looking with children and things in the household and the pandemic, and the having to be locked at home during the recovery, this period or up to now, has always been very difficult, with homeschooling and things like that. So we commend them for that. But nevertheless, we want to, and as I agree with Rona, we want to encourage more to set up businesses and bring businesses forward. They have a very important partner in business and the economy. And where would we be without wonderful ladies? I mean, there we are. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maurice. And okay, and could I turn to one of the wonderful ladies on the panel today? Jackie, could you finally?
I mean, what do you say to that, Maurice? Right? Can I say children as well? You know. But anyway, let's not do that. I like you too much to do that to you. There is no doubt that there has been a differential impact on women during the pandemic, not just because of their caring responsibilities, but because they were the people predominantly in the front line of the pandemic, engaged in social care, which is a predominantly female workforce, and indeed in the NHS as well as nurses. We launched our Women's Manifesto yesterday, so I'm not sure I can do this quickly, but let me just give you one edited highlight. Close the Gap said that if we fully utilised women's skills, abilities and talents in the economy, we would generate an extra £17 billion. Now that's just extraordinary. And therefore we need to do everything we can to unlock that potential. So we would set up an entrepreneurs unit at the heart of government that is about helping women and others grow businesses, and to do so very quickly and to fund good ideas and encourage growth. We would also make social care and childcare an economic growth sector, because there's no doubt that's going to need to expand. And actually, for the money you put into social care and childcare, you actually get 3 times more out of it than you would put in the same money into construction. So there's a real economic imperative for making that a growth area. And finally, people talk about childcare as a women's issue. It's not. Childcare is an economic issue. And unless we want to remove the barriers, doing nothing about childcare simply will not unlock that economic potential. So we are proposing all age, all year, wraparound childcare to be increased incrementally over the course of the Parliament to liberate women from caring for their children, Maurice, or indeed being tied to the kitchen sink out into the world where they actually have a massive contribution to make. And I look forward to you supporting us, Maurice, because behind every good woman is a man.
Thank you very much. Very important they are too, and the fantastic work they've done, Chair, on the front line, and I agree with Jackie on that too. So absolutely. I have 3 daughters who are doing brilliantly in their work.
Thank you, everybody. That is almost 2 o'clock, so we're just going to bring the matters to a conclusion. As always, as chairman, I have some concluding remarks, which are possibly by way of 2 observations on today. One of my jobs, as part of my job as chairman of the Dumbartonshire Chamber of Commerce, I follow almost all the local politicians, both candidates, previous MPs, current MPs and current MSPs on Twitter. And I have to say that it is one of the most depressing aspects of my job, that politics arouses passion, and so it should. And Twitter as a platform is a great place to go for a fight, but not very much else. But too often, throughout all political Twitter, you find people not saying simply that they disagree with the policies or proposals put forward by their opponents, but that these policies are evil or corrupt or tawdry, and that they constitute evidence or they constitute evidence for a phobia against a certain group. And that by extension, the people who support these policies are evil or corrupt or phobic. And that, I can tell, plays well to the galleries that form an awful lot of Twitter audiences and that can create an awful lot of likes. But that as an ordinary person with some interest in politics, I find it really depressing that you find people just saying liar, liar, pants and fire to everybody. And you simply come to the conclusion that all politicians are liars, or all politicians are evil, or all politicians are corrupt. And of course, they are not. The evidence today of the candidates who have lots of things in common say they are not. Now, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but it's simply a reminder that no matter how well it plays to your gallery, that every time you call somebody else, it's not, again, you can't say play nice, because politics isn't about playing nice, because it's important to people, but that every time politicians call other politicians bad names, for want of a better word, it reflects equally as badly on them.
Agreed.
But fortunately, Twitter is not real life. And my second observation is that people can agree and disagree and cooperate across party lines. And I think that was teased out by the questions today, that there are lots of policies in common that cross party lines. And everybody who goes into politics goes in with the aim of helping people. They may have different ideas as to how this help should be delivered and what groups should be progressed to deliver it. But everybody who goes into politics does so in good faith, and people should engage in politics in good faith. That I therefore wish to thank all the candidates, both for their previous work as MSPs and for also for standing to put yourself forward for election again. Putting forward your proposals and policies before the people is the ultimate test of democracy, but it takes a lot of guts and courage, particularly in the midst of Twitter firestorms, to do so. So there's the old joke that democracy is a hell of a bad way to run anything until you consider the alternatives. So there is genuine heartfelt thanks to all of you for both your previous service and for standing as candidates to go forward. As I said previously, we as a chamber wish all candidates good luck on May the 6th and hope you are successful. We as a chamber will continue to work with government at all levels, Scottish, local, Scottish and national, and we hope after May the 6th to continue to work with all parties to progress commerce and make progress for people in Dunbartonshire and the country. So that is all. It would be very traditional at this point to say a round of applause for all the candidates, but that of course would completely ruin everybody's audio. So I'm afraid I'm just going to have to a very token clap to all of you, but it's very heartfelt. So thank you again to all our candidates, and thank you to everyone else for attending. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you.